Tyler Robinson just flipped the entire narrative on its head. This 22-year-old is sitting in a Utah jail cell, refusing to answer even a single question from investigators about why he carried out one of the most shocking political killings in recent American history. But here's the catch. While Robinson thinks his silence makes him look untouchable, the FBI already has him on tape confessing. And that single mistake could destroy his entire defense strategy. Stick around, because the bizarre contradictions in Robinson's behavior, plus the mountain of evidence piling up against him, reveal a story far darker and far stranger than anyone expected. Before we get to Robinson, you have to understand why this assassination rocked the country. Charlie Kirk wasn't just another political voice online. At only 31, he was the founder of Turning Point USA, a youth movement with chapters in hundreds of colleges nationwide. His influence stretched far beyond campuses. He advised Trump, rallied conservative students by the thousands, and became one of the most polarizing figures in modern politics. Whether you admired him or despised him, Kirk was a lightning rod. To his supporters, he was a fearless defender of free speech and traditional values. To critics, he represented everything toxic about online outrage culture. That's why his sudden death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a political earthquake. And when law enforcement revealed who pulled the trigger, the story became almost unbelievable. But the real shock wasn't just the crime. It was the identity of the assassin. A young man who, by all appearances, had everything going for him. On paper, Tyler Robinson was the kind of son every parent dreams about. A straight A student with a flawless 4.0 GPA, an ACT score of 34, placing him in the top 1% of the entire country. He wasn't just smart, he was elite level smart. His achievements earned him a full presidential scholarship to Utah State University worth $32,000, covering 4 years of tuition. His family wasn't struggling either. Robinson grew up in a 6-bedroom home worth more than $500,000, complete with hunting trophies on the walls and all the trappings of suburban comfort. His mom even recorded the moment the university called to announce his scholarship. You can hear the pride in her voice as she congratulated her son for securing a future most students only dream about. By every outside measure, Robinson was set for success. He had brains, opportunities, and a stable home. Yet beneath that picture-perfect exterior, something was quietly unraveling. And the shift from model student to political assassin didn't take decades. It happened almost overnight. For all his promise, Robinson's golden boy image cracked almost instantly once he entered adulthood. Despite winning that full scholarship, he dropped out of college after just 1 semester. His decision shocked classmates and neighbors, who remembered him as polite, reserved, and deeply intelligent. One former classmate even described him as a Reddit kid, the kind of quiet teenager who spent endless hours online, immersed in niche internet debates instead of real-world connections. Psychologists say this is exactly the type of person most vulnerable to radicalization. A criminologist reviewing the case explained that Robinson perfectly fit the profile of someone who falls into online rabbit holes: bright, isolated, disillusioned, and desperate for meaning. With fewer ties to real-life communities, he gravitated toward extremist online spaces. And while he looked like a success story on the outside, inside, Robinson was building resentment. Friends said he became cynical, angry, and dismissive of people around him. It was the classic story of a brilliant student with no outlet for his frustration, until he found one in the dangerous world of political extremism. But no one could have predicted how quickly his private disillusionment would turn into something violent and shockingly public. The turning point came one evening at a simple family dinner. According to testimony later revealed by Utah's governor, Robinson casually brought up Charlie Kirk. At first it seemed like a rant. He complained that Kirk was spreading hate, repeating the same lines you'd expect from someone who had absorbed countless hours of online political content. But investigators now say this wasn't just venting. This was evidence of premeditation. Days later, Robinson's father confronted him directly, and that's when the mask slipped. Robinson didn't deny anything. He confessed. He admitted to his father that he had assassinated Charlie Kirk. Imagine the horror in that moment, hearing your own child calmly admit to murdering one of the most high-profile political figures in America. Robinson's father was stunned, but it didn't stop there. When urged to turn himself in, Robinson reportedly said he'd rather take his own life than face authorities. That chilling response forced the family's hand. They contacted their local youth pastor, who then alerted U.S. Marshals. Soon after, federal agents closed in. Robinson was found at his parents' home, still wearing clothes that matched FBI surveillance footage from the scene of the shooting. At this point, a confession and an arrest might seem like enough to seal a conviction, but investigators were only beginning to unravel the bizarre and incriminating trail Robinson left behind. What prosecutors uncovered next went far beyond a confession. It was a mountain of evidence, much of it bizarre, immature, and self-sabotaging. Inside the home, agents found the rifle Robinson used, wrapped in a towel. But what stunned them were the bullet casings he left behind. Some carried political slogans like, "Hey fascists, catch." Others referenced anti-fascist anthems from video games. And then there were messages so childish, it almost defied belief. Like one casing that read, "If you read this, you're gay. LMAO." Experts pointed out that this kind of inconsistency, mixing political messages with juvenile taunts, showed Robinson wasn't a criminal mastermind. He was arrogant, sloppy, and immature, despite his intelligence. But the FBI didn't stop there. Robinson's roommate, a transgender man, cooperated fully with investigators. He handed over Discord messages where Robinson had discussed his rifle, ammunition, and even his plan to hide the weapon by wrapping it in a towel. The messages matched the crime scene exactly. Combine that with DNA evidence, surveillance footage, and his father's testimony about the confession, and the case against Robinson became nearly airtight. Yet despite the overwhelming proof, Robinson chose to remain silent with investigators, clinging to the belief that saying nothing made him untouchable. What he didn't realize is that his silence only made him look more arrogant, and it gave prosecutors more time to tighten the noose. When federal investigators finally sat down with Tyler Robinson, they expected answers. They expected explanations about his motive, his planning, maybe even the political beliefs that drove him to pull the trigger. Instead, they got nothing. Robinson stonewalled. He sat in that interrogation room and refused to say a single word. At first glance, this might seem like a smart move. Every defense lawyer in America tells clients to stay quiet. But Robinson's silence wasn't tactical. It was arrogant. He thought his refusal to cooperate made him look strong, defiant, untouchable. The problem? He'd already confessed to his family. He'd already left bullet casings covered in incriminating messages. He'd already discussed his plans in Discord chats, all of which were handed directly to the FBI. His silence wasn't protecting him. It was making him look like someone with everything to hide. Experts agree. In a case like this, staying quiet doesn't erase the evidence. It just highlights the contradictions. Robinson bragged about the killing at a family dinner, but now he won't admit anything to investigators. That double standard is exactly what prosecutors will use to paint him as both arrogant and guilty. And if Robinson thought silence would buy him time, he miscalculated. Because while he sat in a cell refusing to speak, prosecutors were building a case that could end his life. News of Charlie Kirk's assassination didn't just stay in Utah, it exploded across the nation. Within hours, political leaders, commentators, and activists were weighing in. Former President Trump demanded the ultimate punishment for Robinson, calling his actions a direct assault on American values. Federal prosecutors began weighing not just state charges, but also federal ones, meaning Robinson could face multiple death penalty cases simultaneously. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, made her first public statement. Her words were not just grief, they were fury. "You have no idea what you've unleashed," she said. "The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry." Her vow was clear. Kirk's movement would not die. If anything, she promised, it would grow stronger. Other conservative leaders echoed her words. Ben Shapiro declared, "We're going to pick up the blood-stained microphone where Charlie left it." Student groups across the country began holding vigils, sharing stories about how Kirk had influenced their political and spiritual lives. What Robinson thought would silence a political movement had the opposite effect. Instead of ending Kirk's mission, his assassination supercharged it. And that's the irony. His attempt to destroy an ideology only ensured its survival. When you look at Robinson's story from start to finish, one question looms large. How does a brilliant young man with every advantage in life throw it all away for violence? On paper, Robinson had everything: intelligence, opportunity, stability. But his story shows how dangerous the mix of arrogance, isolation, and online radicalization can be. He wasn't the stereotypical outcast. He was a high achiever. He wasn't impoverished. He was privileged, and yet he spiraled into extremism anyway. That's what makes this case so chilling. It proves that political violence doesn't just come from desperation, it can also come from ego. Robinson was intelligent enough to plan the assassination in detail, but too immature to avoid leaving a digital trail of evidence. He was bold enough to confess to his family, but too cowardly to face investigators. And now he faces consequences so severe that his entire future is effectively over. Death penalty cases, federal charges, a legacy defined not by his intelligence, but by his arrogance. So what do we take away from this? That online radicalization is no no joke. That arrogance can be just as destructive as ignorance, and that no matter how much someone thinks they're in control of the narrative, the truth always finds its way out. Tyler Robinson thought silence would save him. In reality, it only sealed his fate. What do you think? How does someone with every advantage in life end up destroying it all for political violence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading them. And trust me, what this case reveals about ego, extremism, and the dark side of online culture will stick with you long after this video ends.